for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. Today is Thursday, August 3rd, 2023, closing out the week. And tonight, our guest is Kaedrich Olsen, and we're going to be talking about energetic beings tonight. Very excited about the show. And now you can help support this show and what we do here and our team by getting a Fade to Black T-shirt. Everything is autographed. Everything ships the very next day for free. The links are below and over on our website. You can just order a T-shirt or get a Game Changer membership. And thank you to everybody. Once you get your shirt, take a picture, send it to us. We'll pop you up in our Fade or Not Fade to Black gallery. All right. And with that, let's get straight to it. Our guest tonight, Kaedrich Olsen. We're going to be talking about the subtle influence of energetic entities on the way we think, feel, and behave, and how this affects all of humanity. He's an internationally renowned author, speaker, and teacher who specializes in divergent paths of spiritual growth, including shadow work and developing your paranormal abilities from seances at an early age. We'll be talking about all of that, to a lifetime of esoteric practices, including ruins and Norse mysticism. Of course, you know that. You've seen his picture. You know about all of this. He's ideally suited to help you discover your own sacred path through life and beyond. All of his links are below, and we've got them on social media and the website. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, there he is, Kaedrich Olsen. Kaedrich, good evening, my man. How you doing?
Good evening. I am doing terrific. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited about tonight's conversation.
You know, and we'll try to keep music out of it. Here's the deal. Let's get the first time guest disclaimer out of the way, Kaedrich, which is it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. Accept?
Totally awesome. I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, good. You didn't read the full disclaimer, but you're accepting anyway. You know, I researched this every day on the news. I used to do it on the show, but I do it on the news earlier in the day. I do a fader fact, right? And so I started, because I do the first time guest disclaimer. So I did a little research into that, and I forget the exact numbers. I did this yesterday, but it would take you 76, that's a 7 and a 6, 76 8-hour work days to read through all of the user agreements that you click on in 1 year. Right? I was like, what? And but it makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because those right? How many words are they? How many have you actually read? I can tell you my answer is 0.
Who's got time for that?
Yeah, 76 days, 76 8-hour days to read through all of this stuff that you just do in 1 year. Yeah. Pretty incredible. I kind of want to start here. Oh, by the way, I'll just let everybody know. So I was kind of messing around with Kaedrich before the show, and I said, hey, I got Zach Wilde on the show tonight. And Kaedrich's like, what? And I said, yeah. Anyway, he goes, because I have one of his guitars. I was like, yeah, I kind of knew it. I kind of felt the vibe. Energetic beings. Now, We're going to have a very deep conversation on this tonight. This is something I'm very interested in. And I'm going to back up before I start talking about you. The history of this phenomenon goes back millennia. Ancient cultures have always been aware of this. And it's not just one isolated culture. It's like every culture around the planet has their own version of this, their own warning signs, their own spells, concoctions that you would drink, or just burning somebody at the stake, right? Okay, so that's pretty much it, right? The ancients were very aware of this.
Absolutely. This is an integral part of, like you said, culture from the very beginning. I will even say this goes back to Paleolithic times when they sat around the fires late at night telling stories to each other, and they were hearing rustling in the grass, and their imaginations got the best of them, what would be out there. And then as they told those stories spun and spun and spun. And then they started creating some of these energetic entities. Some of them visited us and interacted with us in ways that we don't quite have the words for today, but they came out through the mythos that we read. So, yeah, it goes way back.
Do you, and then switching from that side, we're going to go right back to it. But today, and I bring up this point with just about every researcher, it doesn't matter what their background is or what the show is about. But today, science, in talking about entanglement or the multiverse or parallel worlds or extra dimensions and all of these things that physics and quantum physics is pointing, and consciousness, of course, too, is pointing towards, it seems like we are talking about the same things, but the ancients didn't have a word for it and they didn't apply the science to it. But do you think that we're getting kind of close to that where our worlds may start to collide and we'll find out what's actually going on?
I think we're getting closer. I think we're getting very close to understanding it. To your point, what we're talking about, like particle physics and quantum physics, I'm fascinated by the scientists that go into it. They may start off as materialist reductionists, thinking there's nothing but the physical world. But as they delve deeper and deeper and deeper, they're going, there's consciousness to all of this. Consciousness is connected. And when I look at that, I like to go to field theory. Now, just for example, my understanding of field theory is, let's say there is the electromagnetic field that exists everywhere, all the time, no matter what. But if there's a perturbation in that field, we may perceive that as a photon. We may experience that as light coming to us, or maybe magnetism. But this field is everywhere. And if there's no perturbations, you don't see it. You don't experience it. It's not there. And if I expand on that, I think consciousness is a field. Like the whole universe is consciousness. This is what the Hermeticists have said. The all is everything. Every universe is consciousness. We are consciousness. This is what the particle physicists and quantum physicists are saying, that the universe is consciousness. What if consciousness is a field that permeates everything, and that to some degree, everything has a bit of consciousness to it, even though it's subtle and energetic in a way that we don't quite experience physically? And so I think that is the foundation basis at the scientific level that we're getting close to understanding. And if we pair the mythos with the science, we're kind of close, but we're not there yet. We need to be able to move beyond linear thinking. And we need to get out of linear communication modes in order to be able to explain how this stuff works better.
You know what really makes me laugh is when I listen to a reductionist, and all of them think they are superior, right, to everybody. But anyway, that being said, I'll listen to a reductionist and dude, are you even listening to yourself? You sound like the Dalai Lama. You sound like consciousness is your world. You're in denial about all of that, right? But if you really listen to how they speak, we are all cut from the same cloth, even though there's a line in the sand and they'll deny it.
That's one of the things about belief. And I teach this a lot to my clients. in students is that belief is pernicious. If you have a belief inside, you don't know that it's a belief. You are solidly affirmed that's exactly how the world works. There's no denying it. That's how the world works. And you will find examples all over the place that reinforce your belief, and you'll reject all of the other examples. And it gets so challenging talking to anybody, no matter where they are, no matter who they are, what they are, if they have these solid beliefs, because we can't come to a mutual connection until we learn to realize that belief is mutable. And when we alter our beliefs, the world around us changes. And when we realize we have that ability, it's fascinating to see. And then we can finally find some overlap where we can communicate. Because I really think one of the tenets of spiritual growth is embracing cognitive dissonance, letting go of belief, and then using belief as a tool. And that's what I think a lot of us need to do, no matter where we are. If we're materialist, reductionist, or we're hardcore into certain religions, we need to be able to realize belief is mutable, and so is reality around us with that belief.
How do we take the connection of belief and religion and separate those? Because I think belief is more about being aware and open-minded than it is with a direct connection to some fundamental religious context. But we're stuck in that and we can't break away from it. How do we separate the word belief from everything else?
The best thing I could say is be willing to test and challenge everything. Even if you know it to be true, is it really? Embrace other ways of thinking. Something that you don't believe is true, test it out for a while. Things that you just absolutely know can't be true, test it. See if it, just put it on, wear it, assume it, and say, okay, this is what I am for today, and go walk around and see those little examples of it. And little by little, belief starts to fade away, and you develop the sense of knowing. It's like, I know what this is, I know what that is. And then if you catch yourself believing something, you suddenly go, oh, cool. There's something for me to play around with and test and challenge and see what that works. And sometimes belief can be good to have, because if you don't have a way of knowing, it's like, great, I'm going to believe this for a while and I'm going to try it on. But again, it comes back to accepting belief can be mutable rather than hard coded. And I think the only way to get out of that is to really at first shock yourself, embrace something that is completely the opposite of what you believe just for a while, and to see if it's true. And then find, Goldilocks it basically. You're, too hot, too cold. Goldilocks it until you find that nice middle place where you can play around with it.
And my favorite thing to do, and that includes with guests, is to bring somebody on that I know very little about, and that doesn't happen too often. I know, you know what I mean. I do a lot of research, but getting into a spirited conversation with somebody that doesn't agree with me, that's somebody that I don't agree, I will walk away smarter. I will learn something. And that is the best way to go about it. You brought up, you said Matt LaCroix says hello, right?
Yep.
Matt is somebody that is very intelligent, right? I love hanging out with the guy. He's very smart. And he's very, what's the word that I want to use? I want to stay in the safe zone. He keeps his blinders on sometimes, where he gets into the system and that's it. It's Matt's way or the highway. That's fine. That's fine. That's just who he is. But with somebody like me and Matt, we get into a conversation, we're going to go at it. And we've done that. And we've walked away from it going, man, that was pretty cool. And the audience and the people that are around us, you know what they learned from that? That two people that don't agree with each other can teach each other something. And that's what we are lacking today, is just that communication from somebody that may not be in your wheelhouse. But why does everybody have to be the same? Or suddenly it's angst. No, it shouldn't be that way, right? We should listen and learn from each other.
Oh, I totally agree. I love the diversity of this world. So many different opinions, so many different cultures, so many different things out there. There's so much to learn from. And if we just lock ourselves into one set path, into one little box, how boring is that? I mean, it's comfortable. Yeah, I get it. It's comfortable and it helps you fit into your birth community and the people that are around you. But to me, it's like, no, let's grow, let's expand, let's develop, let's learn from each other. Because the way I see it, things is not the end all be all. And the way I teach things is not the only way it works. And I love it when I have like a client or a student or a colleague that comes back to me with a completely different perspective on something that I've worked with for years, because it pulls me out of my rut and it gets me to think about how things are working, and it gives me a different way of exploring. I love that when people question and push back, because it makes me think about why I'm doing what I'm doing and gives me a better perspective. So I agree with you completely.
I think Andy Warhol said it best, right? A dinner party, the perfect number is 8 people that are different, right? You don't want a dinner party of 8 witches. That's a boring conversation, right? you want one witch, one alien abductee, one psychic medium. You know what I mean?
I've been there.
Skeptic. You need Michael Shermer at the table, right? You need him, and you are going to have one hell of a night.
I've
And
been
that's
there.
yeah.
I've been there. We've had local gatherings of witches here. They hang out at a local restaurant and have a conversation. And you're right. Most of the people are agreeing, love and light, the threefold law, do what thou wilt, all that kind of thing. And it's great, great, great. But I'm like the jerk that comes in and challenges everybody and pokes the button and kicks over the hornet's nest and says, yeah, but what about this and what about that? And I'll ruffle some feathers and I'll plant seeds, because that's what I'm doing. I'm planting seeds for those people who can see beyond their paradigm and question it and go, well, what if he's right? What about this? And I will admit, sometimes I will bring up stuff in conversation that I don't agree with, but I want to see how people react to that.
Is that an energetic being taking a hold of you when you do that? Is that your natural personality, or is there another influence going on?
That's me. That's me, because if we are stagnant in our systems, we don't grow. And, as a shadow worker, when I have clients, part of my job is to make them a little bit uncomfortable. We get stuck in our comfort zones. We get into what makes us happy and comfortable, but we can't move. We can't grow from that. And if our patterns are based on stuff that's not healthy for us, we need somebody to challenge that. So it's part of my nature to be a little bit challenging, but not too much.
Where do we can go back into deep history? Where is the origination of these energetic beings or spirit, whatever we want to label them as? I don't think we have the right vocabulary to lay this out, but where do they come from? Is it an interdimensional something? Does it exist on the plane of the universe? And that's, where do they originate?
That's the fun thing that I really love about this, is just as we have like this myriad diversity on Earth in the physical 3D realms, that diversity is much more compounded and much more complex in the subtle realms. There are some beings, I swear, don't have an age. They don't exist in time as we know it. They're timeless. So we can't say that they have an origin. They don't. They've always been, always will be. And then there are other beings that we create. We do it all the time. That's a natural part of our existence. And there are these little spectra of existence. Like, they exist in one form in this time period, they exist in this other form in this other time frame, but they're always in those states. Again, when we're talking origin, we have to assume that time is linear. But when we're dealing with the subtle realms, time isn't quite always linear. It is in some ways, in some places, but not always. So it's a challenging it's a challenging question to answer.
Okay, so let's go into a deep hypothetical.
Yep.
There's another planet. There's another radio show. There's a dude named Kaedrich, right? Some dude named Jimmy, and they're doing their thing, right? 10,000 light years away. are the same energetic beings there that are here.
Very possible. When I've talked about the consciousness field, that everything is consciousness, entities in this subtle realm move at the speed of consciousness. And they move to whatever they're attuned to. It's like a vibration. It's like a resonance. I call it similarities attract and perpetuate. I've got 9 rules of working with the paranormal. And the primary one is similarities attract and perpetuate. So 10,000 years, 10,000 light years from here, you and I in our alternate version are having a very similar conversation to what we're here. So we're tuned in at a certain consciousness vibration, a certain consciousness frequency. And if there's an entity that wants to contribute to that conversation in both places, why not? Why it probably even be at both places at the same time, because time doesn't work the same way in those subtle realms, and it will be influencing us in the exact same ways because we're on that same vibration level.
When the talk started to surface throughout deep history, some of it in the earliest stages was documented and written about. But even before that, when we go into deep prehistory, before written languages, there was always talk about communication, and the words started to come in like deities and gods and angels, and which folded over into different types of folklore, whether it was Asia, right, Persia, Egypt, Central South America. It doesn't matter. They were all talking about the same things. And is this, if we had a funnel, would it all just come down to this one situation of just a conscious energy being is making contact?
Yes. If we were to funnel it down, that's exactly it. A conscious being of some degree of consciousness, because there's multiple, I believe it's a spectrum. There's multiple layers of that, but definitely a conscious being of some kind is making contact with something that has a similar resonance energy to it.
Why did the ancients understand this? Where here we are, we're supposed to be developed and intelligent today, right? And we forgot everything that we learned about this and had established about it. Why did the ancients seem to have it somewhat figured out?
Here's the funny thing. This is one of the things that Matt and I disagree on. And this is one of the things that a lot of people don't agree with me on. I don't think they did. I think when we look back in time, we are seeing the documentation of maybe a few individuals that understood it and a few individuals that put things together. And they would have also done it symbolically in a way that was relevant to them. But we're getting into the degree of semiotics. When they even describe a mythological character, be it in prose, it's still symbolic to them with their own understanding. And they put it down in the way that they understood it. But when we look back in time, we can't really get into their mindset. We just can't, no matter how good of an anthropologist we are. Instead, we're going to project onto that symbol what we understand and what we're coming to understand. And then we look back at that and we go, wow, they knew so much more back then. Maybe that one individual did, but not the whole society. Or maybe it's just us going, wow, okay, now I see how that works because it was way back then. I'm not fully convinced that they were more advanced than we were. For example, when I look to the Norse, because I've studied Norse for a long time, in the modern Norse community, we have something called UPG, unsubstantiated personal gnosis, which is okay to cuss.
Yeah.
Basically, UPG, but it means, hey, this dude up there doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just making shit up.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, stop. If it's gnosis, it's always going to be personal. And if it's really gnosis, because gnosis is a type of reception of information from a higher level being, there's still some relevance to it. And what basically, when people say, no, this is UPG, what it means is we living in our modern times can't come up with our own understanding of working with deities and working with subtle beings. We have to look to what the ancestors wrote down. because they're the only ones that could understand it. And I'm like, wait. Are you saying the ancestors were better at this than we are today? Are you saying that the work that we have today is not as relevant as what the people did at one time? So that's where I kind of get cautious there, is that what we're doing today is still relevant, still powerful, still meaningful, and we still need to learn from the ancients. But I think we're in it together. I don't think they were better than we are today. I think they're just as good.
Did you see the TV show Norseman?
Is that the comedy one?
Yeah.
I try to watch a couple episodes, but I didn't get very far.
Oh, there was a Kaedrich in there. There's a Kaedrich. It's a great show, by the way, and they didn't do a season 4. Broke my heart. Okay, off of Norseman. You need to go back and watch it, man. It's worth it. Okay. The idea today of different perceptions of this, like walk-ins, right? And of course, shadow work, and in The Exorcist and possession and demonic possession. This isn't a modern phenomenon, but it is something that we have modern words tied into with this. And so would it, in your estimation, when somebody is talking about a walk-in, is this where you step in and go, okay, now we need to do some shadow work. This is what's going on. And it's an energetic situation. It's not what you may think it is. Am I correct in looking at it like that?
Maybe. We'll have to maybe true up some terms. For me, a walk-in is a soul gets born into a body, just like the natural process. But something happens with that soul saying, I can't do this anymore. I got to get out of here. I can't handle this. We're not going to do the suicide route. We're not doing anything, but I can't hang this anymore. I completed my path. I'm done. And another soul comes along and says, okay, I'll pick up where you left off. We'll leave that body going. We'll leave that identity going. I'll just pick up where you left off. And so that's where a soul will change. The walk-in basically is a new soul comes in, the old one leaves, and then the new soul will take over. This is where you'll see a dramatic shift in personalities, where a person may be a drug abusing person whose life is just spiraling down the drain. And then one day, just like suddenly like, nope, I'm done. I'm out of it. I'm not doing this stuff anymore. And they get, clean cut. They get a family and they're living a solid life. That's a walk-in. And that tends to be an agreement between souls where they're accepting it. But where we might get thrown off is we get attachments. And we get attachments all the time. And attachments will promote and feed off of negative energies within us. For example, we may be getting an attachment that's a fear-based attachment. And we may have been having a sense of confidence, a sense of go. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this. But now there's like, no, I don't know. There's this growing uncertainty. I don't know about this. I don't think I can do that. I don't know. Okay, I got to get up and I got to do this. But no, I don't really want to do that. Well, that's the attachment feeding insecurity and fear to that person. And that person becomes a battery generating fear and insecurity energy, which then feeds that attachment. And whenever that attachment gets on low on energy, it feeds us back. But we have to remember everything attaches to us because there's an agreement. And here's the critical part about this is if we're confident, we're always on go, what is it about us on our internal world that suddenly said, wait a minute, I need to be afraid. I need to stop and be insecure for a little bit. We're not going to consciously be aware of it. It's not a conscious agreement, but it's an energetic, emotional, subconscious agreement saying, yeah, I'm feeling your energy of fear and insecurity. Go ahead and attach to me because I need that for whatever reason. So when we visit with clients, sure, we can pull off that entity. We can pull that attachment off. We can cut the tendril, cut it away, clear it off, but it will come back. If we don't get to the root of why, what was the point of that agreement? And maybe we're dealing with somebody that's on the verge of burnout. Maybe they're finally reaching something that they don't think they can do. Or maybe it's triggering something from their past. Like, great, I'm going to go start doing this kind of work. But wait, I saw my dad doing that kind of work too. And look how bad he failed and fell. So I don't want to do that either. So that's where the shadow work comes in. Shadow work is dealing with the unwanted thoughts and emotions and beliefs that we have inside, most of it stemmed from childhood. And so this confident person, go, 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 is suddenly now hit with insecurity. We'll do the shadow work around that fear and insecurity. Like, why? Where is this coming up? What is this fear and insecurity all about? And then doing that shadow work, we clear the energetic anchor point. So this attachment can't glom back on and fill them up with that fear energy. So now they can go undertake that project that they were maybe felt daunted in dealing with. And so that's kind of a little difference between attachment and walk in, and how we do a little bit of shadow work for that.
And what about this is just basic conversation, and we'll continue in just a second. But then we have the idea of possession. And because of you and I are the same age, so you know what happened when across the United States when The Exorcist came out. And so that movie comes out and grabbed the country, right? Shook it. I was one of them. I think I was 10 when the movie came out. And I made the mistake of reading the book too, as well, at around that age. And suddenly you had people being possessed, and stories about this on the front page of every newspaper across the country. Suddenly everybody was possessed. Suddenly everybody needed to be exorcised, and Catholic priests around the country had a full-time gig. Now, is this something is it real, or is it manifested where we are creating this, making it real?
Valid questions. And it's again a complex answer, and that's great. Yes, as a cultural phenomenon, The Exorcist taught people all over the world how to behave when they're possessed. And so if a person were to believe they were possessed, they would now behave this way. It doesn't mean that people didn't act that way before The Exorcist, but now we're seeing a whole plethora of people, flopping around, cussing and puking and talking in foreign languages or other languages, or just glossalia. They're not quite coherent when they're doing it. And so when we see videos of deliverance ministers, they're acting just like what we see in The Exorcist. But that's not quite what the tales were beforehand. However, I want to throw this out there. I've been doing paranormal stuff my whole life. I literally was born into it. Literally, quite honestly, it's not a figurative. Literally born into the paranormal stuff, and have been working with it my entire life. And The Exorcist I saw when I was 7 years old at my grandmother's house. It made a huge impression on me. Like, I couldn't go to sleep at night unless I was super aware of every level of consciousness I had, every thought I had, every emotion I had, made sure it was mine before I could actually go to sleep. It took me years to process through this. So it had a big impact on me. And so I was always aware and trying to be aware of what possession looks like and where possession is. And in all of my years of working, when we get to the word possession, where there's an actual other sapient, sentient spirit occupying the body of a human being, it's not a demonic entity. It's actually a loved one. It's a loved one that we loved and that we trusted and we cared about. And when they cross over, either they're a little bit lost or a little bit scared or alone, or conversely, they're like the helicopter mom and dad, the drill sergeant that always is like micromanaging everything that you do. And they still think, oh no, I know the best partner for you in your life, and you're not doing a good job of running your own finances. So let me take over. So that person, they love and trust that person, that parent figure, or that, uncle or aunt or grandmother. And they're like, great, let's share space. And so we have to do some work to separate those spirits and let the spirit cross over and do the work that they need to do. That's the cases of possession that I've seen and that I've worked with. Conversely, when I'm hearing about a child, and I hate to say this, but we need to bring this out into the open. I really feel strongly about this. When we have a child that is in bed, flopping around, cussing and puking and exhibiting all of those signs, yes, the family might bring in a deliverance minister to make that thing go away. But what I've seen in those cases is there's no paranormal activity going on. There's nothing paranormal about it. This is conversion disorder. These are non-epileptic seizures that are brought about by chronic trauma. There's some bad abuse going on in that house. and that kid cannot express that. That kid does not have a safe place to go, does not have a safe place to get away, and the body reacts to that. The body can't handle that stress, so the body does what it does. And when you bring in a deliverance minister to exorcise the demon out of that kid, you're basically saying that kid is bad. That
You're
kid is being
cementing it.
awful.
You're cementing it. You're solidifying
Yeah.
it.
We're blaming the victim and we're perpetuating the abuse going on in the house.
Right.
So the exorcist is not an accurate example of what possession looks like.
Okay, so you've kind of said yes to both versions. That it's not necessarily a demon, right? But it is something that's wrestling control, right? And you said a loved one.
Yes.
But what about the other side of it, which is manifesting and thinking about this enough to the point where it does become reality?
Yes. Yes. That does absolutely happen. And let's build a hierarchy of this. Let's build some levels of this. Whenever we have a persistent emotional state, we're going to create this energy because every emotion has an energy output. In my world, in my vernacular, energy, information, and emotion are all the same thing, no matter what. And so when you're feeling these emotions over and over, you're producing this energy output that will eventually glom into a ball. It's called a thought form, and it's programmed with a single thought. Make me angry, make me upset, make me quiet and compliant, make me whatever. And this thing subsists off of that energy and will poke us with that emotional energy. Well, if there might be a spirit in the house, this is what I call a compound haunting. If there is a spirit in the house, maybe it's a little boy. You don't know that. You don't know what it is. It's a little boy that's curious and playful. And so it pushes the dog's ball across the room. It'll pick something up off of your table and look at it and go, oh, what's this? Well, the only experience you've had with the paranormal, not meaning you, Jimmy, but the general figurative you, the only experience you've had with the paranormal is what you've seen on TV shows with the paranormal investigators and what you've seen in the horror movies, what you've heard in the churches. So now because we come back to belief, now you know for a fact that that thing rolling the ball and picking the stuff up is a demon. That is a demon haunting your house. It's there to hurt you. It's there to possess you. It's there to make your life miserable. So you're generating this fear bubble. You're generating all of this fear energy and you're creating it over and over and over and over again, programming it with hurt me, scare me, make me afraid. And it's going to do that. It's going to do that. And if that continues on and you're trying to explain to your friends, you're trying to explain to your family, like even if it's like a kid experiencing this, going, hey, I'm experiencing this. And they're saying, oh, just shut up. I don't want to hear this. These are games you're just playing. This is all just your imagination. You now no longer have a safe place to express your energy.
Right.
You don't have a way of getting that out. So it will manifest as a poltergeist. A poltergeist is not an entity. It's an effect created by our consciousness in the space around us. So now you're going to get manifestations of black blobs. You're going to get bad smells. You're going to get people scratching. You're going to get things thrown across the room. And you've got this fear thought form plugging you with this fear energy, and it creates this cycle. And I've seen this so many times. It creates this cycle of fear over and over and over again. Meanwhile, there's a scared little boy now in that house going, oh no, what do I do? Where do I go? Well, there's all of this negative, scary energy in the house. How do I deal with that? What do I do with that? Well, we didn't create that little boy, and that little boy was just being a boy, but we created that demonic force in that house. And so we call a priest, and the priest comes in, clears the energy. We feel good. Activity comes down. Everything's settled. But yet that boy is like, oh, good. Finally, things are
The
quiet
ball
again.
rolls again.
The ball rolls again. You're like, oh my God, it's back. What do I do?
Very interesting. I'm not going to waste time with this tonight, but I moved into a haunted house, this place that I'm in now, right? A couple of years ago. And I had everything. Now, I didn't ask for, no, it was already here. All right. There was just stuff, and stuff's moving. I mean, crazy stuff. But I didn't tap out. I didn't give in. I didn't give in to the fear. I live alone, and I could have, and I've taught, you know what, the best psychiatric couch I could have is my audience. Oh, we lost Kaedrich. Oh, you're back. Okay. What'd you do, Kaedrich? See, that's energetic energies right there. They don't want me to share this information. But here's the trip with that is I could very easily have done what you're saying. I could have freaked myself out. I could have lost my cookies. I didn't do it. I did find myself talking to the spirit or whatever's doing this.
Good.
Right? Out loud by myself, looking completely ridiculous, by the way. It's a good thing cameras weren't rolling. But I'm like, okay, all right, enough of this. I'm not going to go and look. I'm not going to do this. I'm just not going to do this. But it could have tipped the other way. And I always found that interesting. It was never threatening, right? I never got hit in the head with anything. But yeah. And it was, is that the right approach? I guess is what is the way that I did it naturally. But for the audience out there, if you do feel something strange or you see something, don't freak out. Don't feed it.
Exactly. Talk to it just like you did. Set boundaries. Saying, hey, I know you live here too, but you can't come in my bedroom, especially when I'm sleeping. Can't bug me. But if you want to talk, maybe we'll do it at this time and place. And we'll sit down and we'll talk. And if it's another person, why not treat it with the same dignity and respect that you would treat another human being? The same dignity and respect that you'd want for you. And if it's not another person, well, so what? Still treat it with the dignity and respect that another sapient, sentient being deserves. And that will get you a whole lot further than going head to head or, trying to fight with it, to get it out of your house or to get scared. If you just kind of learn to coexist with it and share space, it's going to go so much better.
Well, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to be a diplomat. I'm not going that far. I'm not going that far with it. But I did. I need your thoughts on this. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't want to sound like the crazy person. I don't want to sound like the crazy old lady that lives down the street in the haunted house. I don't want to sound like her right now. But this is what happens. This is an example. I'm lying in bed and I hear a thump, a noise, right? Just obvious. And it's maybe midnight, 11 o'clock at night. I'm in bed. And I said out loud, come on. Right?
Yep.
And I go, come on, really? Really? And I said out loud, do you expect me to get up out of this warm bed and come on? I'm not going to do it. And I went back to whatever I was doing. But is that the right way to approach it? For me, it's just like I'm not, and I don't know if it's some ghost going, hey, let's scare them. Let's tip this over and let's have some fun. I don't know if that's what's going on, but that's my way of dealing with it.
Yes, you're setting boundaries. You're setting boundaries of what you're willing to do and not willing to do. This reminds me of old folklore, old Germanic and Scandinavian folklore. Like if you're out late at night in the woods and you see like the spirit of a person or a nature spirit or a woman, kind of shows up and might be trying to say, hey, go check this out. Come with me and do this, or calls you with a song, the siren song, right? The thing that you do is you acknowledge it. Well, I heard that. I see what you're saying. I see what you're doing, but nope. I'm not going with you. I'm staying here. I'm doing my own thing.
I'm going to walk this way.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly what you did. You acknowledged it and you set and held your boundaries. That's beautiful. That's a great way of handling it.
Now, what about an actual demonic possession? How do we know that situation is occurring?
Here's an interesting thought experiment. If we go back to the Goetia, the false hierarchy, which are, the key books of classical demonology found in the Catholic Church, and we look at those demons that are in there, like Baal and Belial, and all of those names, we can trace those demons back to Macedonia, back to Canaan, back to Babylon. These demons were pre-Semitic gods. They were beloved. They were cared about by the people in those cultures before Judaism, before Christianity. They were benevolent creatures. And if you read about those demons in the false hierarchy and in the Goetia, they'll say, well, they look this awful thing, they do these awful things, but hey, they're great to call upon if you want to learn about math and science, or if you want an increase in abundance for your crops, call upon this one. But they also command these certain number of legions of demons. Like, wait, what? Huh? It doesn't make sense. So when we're talking to like Baal and Belial, some of these ancient demons, they're gods. They're gods that are 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 years old. They are the deities of these ancient civilizations. They were beloved. They were cared about. They were benevolent entities at that time. But as we see with every culture, and every culture on the human planet on Earth, whenever there is one culture comes in, it demonizes the old one. And it turns all of their old ways into demons, their old gods. And that's what happened here. And so when we get into demonic possession, if we're going to go back to those 72 demons that are in the hierarchies, don't you think that this entity that's been around for 6,000, 10,000 years, that's supposed to be wise and brilliant and strong and powerful, doesn't it have something better to do than just get in the body of a child and flop around and cuss and puke? Don't you think it would go for a bigger target, maybe?
Yeah, well, yeah, that seems very logical. Okay, but I think it occurs. And I've often wondered, what's the reason for this? What's the purpose of it? Is it because somebody's energies are weakened and they're open and they're susceptible to it? I don't know, but the word when we talk about these spirits, the different, the positive and the negative, the light and the dark, right? Demons and angels, and one is benevolent and one is benevolent, and that's just the way that it is. I'm wondering if there's some basis to that, where we do have certain examples. Everything can't be explained away with one explanation.
Right.
I think that there is a variety of things going on, and that may be in a religious context, if we just take it religiously, that there is such a thing occasionally as an actual demonic possession.
Maybe.
And you're saying no. You're
Maybe. Seriously, I've been doing this like for 50 years, and I have not encountered anything truly evil. I've seen things that presented as evil, things that we misunderstood as evil, things that we interpreted as evil, and things that acted in evil ways. But actual evil, I haven't come across that yet. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying it's not out there. But what I think is going on, because this is what I've seen, is let's talk about egregores, for example.
Sure.
Egregores are collectively created entities. This is where a community gets together and says, this entity exists. This entity does that. It acts this way. It behaves this way. It does these things. And the more we believe in those stories about that entity, the more our collective will creates that entity. That entity is now real. It's an actual existing thing that's out there, and it can be a malevolent being, because we all agree that it is. And usually what we find at like abandoned asylums or some of these haunted locations where some really awful things happen, and we tell our stories about it, we're creating egregores that perpetuate those stories. Now, if a person is, again, we got to go back to agreement. It's never going to happen without some kind of an agreement. It's not conscious. You're not aware of it, but there is that inner part of you that needs to have whatever that experience is, whatever reason. Doesn't matter. It's shadow work. We'll get to that later. And in those cases, that person will let themselves be open to this malevolent egregore, this malevolent entity, to come in and do these things, or to let themselves be influenced by its thoughts, by its emotions. And in that case, yeah, they can perhaps do some things that are not really good based on that. But I will still 100% hold that person accountable for their actions, even if they are under the influence of an extra dimensional entity or some sort of an energetic entity. No matter what, we are still 100% responsible for what we do. So
That is such a great point. So let's stay right here for a second. When we talk about consciousness, there tends to be, at least with me, lots of unicorns and rainbows when I think of consciousness. Okay, it's a good thing. But that's not the way the universe is built, right? It's positive and negative. So is there bad consciousness out there running around with bad intentions?
There's an Doctor Who quote. I kind of like the old Doctor Who stories. There's an old Doctor Who quote that I love, that evil just depends on what side of the fork you're on.
Yeah, it's true.
And so if we were to look at, let's say, a fox running down, and it grabs and kills a mama rabbit. To those baby rabbits, that fox is a total demon. But that fox brings home that mama rabbit to its babies. And to that fox's babies, that fox is an angel. And so, where we have to be careful here is we are imposing human dynamics onto the natural world. And even in the energetic realm, it's a natural world. There are entities out there that do not abide by our sense of morality. And if we were to say that they're evil, we might be discounting some of the benefit they're doing, because there could be some benefit to what's going on. So I'm always cautious. Now, when I'm working with a client one on one, and if I'm seeing some destructive behaviors, I'm seeing some destructive thoughts, emotions coming about them, you betcha we're going to fight hard. We're going to get that mind clear. We're going to go deep into those shadows. We're going to get that stuff clear, and we're going to find out what that entity is all about. But here's the thing about shadow work is, underneath those shadows, even if it's a self-destructive thought, underneath that self-destructive thought is a reason why it helps us. There's a reason that that shadow is benefiting us, even though we can't see it right away. It may think it's protecting us from something. And so it's not overly beneficial, but that shadow thinks it's helping us. And when we understand why that shadow is helping us, we see what is amazing and wonderful about us, why we needed that protection, why we needed that help. And so, in a sense, that's where this malevolent entity can be beneficial to us, is it will help us see these positives. And now we focus on the positives. Another example of this is, I was working with a client one time who was dealing with some very bad paranormal activity. He'd be going to sleep at night, the lights would start flickering, and there was not a problem with the electrician. I made him get an electrician. He would hear the banging on the walls. He would get these awful nightmares. And as we're in session and we're working one-on-one, we're doing these energy works. And I always start off by, here's how we set and clear that energy. Well, it's still going on. I'm like, what the heck? What's happening here? So we do a couple other techniques. We do some banishing work when it's still there. And I'm like, wait, why is this going on? Okay, maybe this is more powerful than me. I'm about ready to admit defeat on this one. And I said, okay, let's stop. Let's connect with higher self. Let's talk about what's going on. And as we start unwinding the dynamics of his life, he's getting into some criminal activity and some things that aren't really so good. But he's got a brilliant mind. He's got a good spiritual connection. And it was his higher self coming in and his guides coming in to kick his butt, to say, cut this crap out, stop this right now. And so they were bringing his attention through what we would have called demonic activity. So I've seen it all over the spectrum, but there's always this underlying beneficial thing. When we get to that underlying beneficial thing, the problem stops.
I haven't spoken to him in years, but I had a friend, straight and narrow, musician, drummer. I don't want to say too much. Very smart, college educated, heck of a musician, right? Just unreal. And it was nearly overnight, from one day to the next, changed. And it got to the point where I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to communicate anymore. It was almost like a girlfriend or something, where suddenly everything that I said was wrong, right, and was being misinterpreted, and I tried to outsmart this and talk my way through. I didn't. I did everything wrong that you possibly could. Like I tried to be there, but anyway, is that something where? I mean, there was an outside influence going on. I didn't understand that. But when we see that, we want to blame the person. We don't necessarily deal with it the right way or communicate the right way. We make it worse, and the relationship breaks down, right? And this happens over and over again, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm only delayed here because I'm getting like 3 different layers of possibility to answer that one.
Sure.
Because, for example, when you're talking about your drummer friend, I've had a paranormal investigator friend, had a very similar kind of thing. She went into an investigation site and did the normal investigating, brought the data, got all the data they needed. But when it was over, she was not herself. Definitely in a more negative place. And even some of her friends that were mutual friends with her reached out to me saying, "Hey, something's wrong. What can we do here?" So I gave her a clearing meditation, did a clearing meditation overnight. Boom, done, shifted, easy, taken care of. That was an easy one. She basically got an attachment that was influencing her behavior and her moods. And once we cleared that energy, it was gone, it was done. At the same time, a lot of what I see shadow work wise, working with clients, it's not an entity. It's just a different growth pattern. Like sometimes two people, and this is what I tell people about spiritual growth. It's really hard to hear, is that spiritual growth can be a destructive process. Because when we reach a certain plateau of our growth, the people around us that aren't contributing to that growth, they're in a disharmonious relationship with us. We clash with them. We get into these conflicts and arguments that don't make any sense because they're not doing their work, we're doing our work. And the only answer is let them go on their path, we go on our path. And sometimes this is fun in a shadowy way. Two people are doing their shadow work, they're doing their spiritual work, and they're clashing, but they found out that their authentic selves are just that far apart and they just need to go their separate ways. So both of those things could be happening here.
Yeah, it was. I didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, it was a frightening situation. It was almost like demonic possession, man. If you want me to tell you the truth. Where and because I didn't understand, nor see, this is the thing. Neither did he. Right? I don't think he noticed this dramatic shift and change. Do people notice that, or they don't? They're not aware of it.
Most of the time, they are not aware of it. When this happens, this can be like a shade. A shade is a type of human soul that's built up of, let's say, vices. Let's say somebody, as they're growing through their life, was, heavy drinker. They had a really bad attitude. When they died, the soul went one direction, but this personality complex, this sub personality complex, created its own little energy form, and it wants to subsist. It wants to continue its existence, and it's ugly. It's awful. It's not a nice person, but it's just this little ball of energy that has these ugly personality traits. And it's going to go hang out in a dive bar, for example, because it has similar energy patterns to it. Now, it's going to find that one person that may be feeling bad, that might be a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more open, and it's going to glom onto them and it'll go, "Hey, how about another drink? Hey, now that you had these drinks, it's okay to say this now, right? Oh, wouldn't that be funny? Oh, why don't you go throw that thing? And why don't you go do that? Wouldn't that be great?" And it becomes a slippery slope. So
Mm.
the person doesn't notice that they're going down this slope, but the people around them are like, "Hey, man, what's up with you? You're doing these things and you're doing that." Like, "I'm not doing this. That's not me. There's just something wrong with you." And so that person, if they're not doing their spiritual work, they're not aware that something's shifting them and influencing them on an internal level. And unfortunately, that happens more often than I like to see, but it's they're out there.
We have a mutual friend. I'm not going to say who it is, but we have a mutual friend who told me about this experience, and they were in Europe. All right, and I don't want to get any more specific than that because this is a private conversation that was had with me. But they're in Europe, and I'll say he could be a she. Okay, but he's in bed sleeping, and he hears some movement in the room. Wakes up. He's lying on his back, and he felt something on the bed, and he opens his eyes. Standing on the bed, 2 feet, one on each side of his legs, is this black entity with a cape. It's all black, evil looking face, black, and red glowing eyes with clawed fingers approaching him. And he's looking up like this. And now when I say something like that, and this is coming from somebody that, man, right, that doesn't tell these kinds of stories. What was that? Now, I'll say this. A person jumped out of the bed and ran out of the room. Said entity did not follow him or her, but the moment of all of this was real, and that it was physical. What is this? What was going on?
I love these kind of stories because that's an extra mystery. We go right back to that diversity. There's like a whole range of things that could be, especially since we're dealing with Europe. Europe has this vast history of things that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Let me run through various scenarios for you.
Okay, and real quick, there was a physical element to this. They felt the pressure of the feet on the bed. Mm-hmm. And when this person got out of the bed, had to move around the being's legs. That it was definitely leaning on the physical side. Although I think it was described to me as almost ghost-like or transparent, semi-transparent. But go ahead, continue.
Yep. My first thought could be some sort of a nature spirit. There are all sorts of nature spirits, rock spirits, tree spirits, water spirits, all sorts of them, more than we can figure out and count. They don't necessarily like humans anymore. They don't get along well with humans because we're destroying habitats for them. We're destroying their homes, disrupting places. And, if someone is going to mess with your house, you're going to mess back. So a lot of times people are having problems with nature spirits because the spirits are torqued off. And so we got to work with that. So in Europe has a huge history of folklore, a huge folklore history of, and I'm going to just say it, in pagan times, people mostly got along with the land spirits. They mostly got along with it. There were some conflicts, some issues, but when Christianity came in, these were now demonic entities that were not going to be saved. And so people started treating them badly, started treating them horribly, and that created some dissension between the natural spirit world and the human world, and they don't like people. Another thing that it could be is like this egregor tulpa type thing. We create these entities, we build them up, we create them, they're all over the place. Possibility. I grew up in a neighborhood full of shadow people. There were just shadow people all over the place. People who didn't even believe in spirits will be coming over to visit me at night going, what is with the people outside? You think that you see somebody standing on the street walking along, but then you go look, they're gone. They'll be in your house. They're everywhere. But granted, they're not malevolent. But if you mess with them, they'll mess with you back. I don't buy that the fact that the shadow people are evil. I've been around shadow people since I was a child. They've been everywhere. And the only time I've seen them be a problem was when people are a problem to them. Again, it's kind of like that. You mess with me, I'm going to mess with you. So it could be one of those shadow things. It could be an interdimensional being that we don't know yet. I've encountered a myriad of interdimensional beings that I just can't classify. It could be something like that. But ready for this one? When I work with the paranormal stuff, I will always try to debunk the mundane first. Somebody telling me that they're a problem with a light switch, get an electrician. Somebody tells me that the faucet keeps dripping, get a plumber. In numerous cases, I've worked with people. They've told me the same kind of thing. They wake up in the night, there's like this demonic presence on the bed. They feel the pressure. Sometimes it's on them, sometimes the pressure's on the bed. It's filling them with this great state of fear. They get up, they get out of the room, they get wide awake, they look at it and it disappears, or they talk to it that goes away. And in every one of those cases I've worked with clients, it's not been something paranormal. It just hasn't been. What it is that sleep paralysis, the night terror. As we're in sleep, we are paralyzed. Our body produces a chemical, I can't remember the name of it, that paralyzes our body. And sometimes when we start to wake up and we're in a hypnagogic state, we're highly susceptible. We're between dream sleep and we're awake, but our body is paralyzed. And now our dream state is going to interpret that as something on top of us. What is this? Oh my God, it's an entity. It's a demonic, it's a hag, it's a cat, it's a shadow person. We're going to fill in the blanks with our own personal mythology as to what this thing is. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that as they're coming through this sleep paralysis and the hypnagogic state, they are interpreting that their paralysis is being caused by this demonic entity. And when they finally fully wake up, it's gone. And what I've worked with these clients, and this is something I'm happy to share with everybody, and I've had great success with this. It's a little hard to do. It's easy, but it's a little hard to do. But when you do it, you're going to be successful at it, and it will stop this from ever happening again. As you start to notice that you're waking up and you have that fear state and you think that there's something in the room, I want you to laugh at it. It's going to be hard because you're afraid, you're scared. And the first time you're doing this, you're going to be like, it's not going to come out well. But after you drew this like 2, 3, 4 times, you're going to be able to laugh. Laughter is so critical because remember, I told you similarities attract and perpetuate. That if this is an entity that is a negative, malevolent, fear-based entity, it wants fear energy out of you. It wants sheer terror out of you. And if you give it its food, it's going to keep bugging you. But what would be poison to something that lives off of fear? Laughter and joy, awe and wonder. So if you can laugh, and this is really an entity in that room, it's going to poison and it's going to leave. If it is sleep paralysis going through a hypnagogic state and you start to laugh, you're going to reprogram your subconscious mind. Instead of being afraid when you're feeling sleep paralysis, you're going to think it's funny and you're going to have a laugh about it. You're going to move into this laughter state. Either way, you're going to stop this problem every single time if you can bring yourself to laugh when you recognize that you're having a sleep paralysis night terror situation.
Now, but we like being scared.
We do.
And look, man, why would you want to fix something like that? Right? You take the fun out of it. Why?
Jimmy.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that strange? Yeah, I know. Isn't that strange? Why do we like to? Is it the adrenaline? Why do we enjoy? Why do we go to scary movies? Why do we like the jump scenes?
I can't believe I forgot the name of it. But the reason why we have fun at a horror movie is the same reason why you get goosebumps when you listen to certain music. You've ever experienced that? You're listening to a certain song and you're like, oh, not everybody gets that, by the way. It's only a select group of the population seem to get that. What's going on is your subconscious mind, your unconscious emotional mind is expecting something. It's like expecting the music to go a certain way. It's expecting the story to go a certain way, the movie to go a certain way, but now it suddenly goes this way. And so there's a slight moment of terror, just a slight moment of terror, which then the prefrontal cortex kicks in and it tells the amygdala and the brainstem, no, everything's fine, we're good. And now it finds that funny and hilarious because, oh no, there's nothing going on. This is just silly. And so it's this really weird dichotomy that goes on in the inner brain of like, oh, something scary is happening. No, it's not really scary. So we get a big kick out of it, and we think it's a lot of fun.
Now, where do we draw the line? Man, I just blew right through the commercial. You know what? I'm going to hold that thought. Let me get the commercial in, and then draw the line is the first question when we come back after this short break. Our guest tonight, Kaedrich Olsen. We are talking about energetic beings that control our lives. We'll be right back. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a human origins, science, and technology expo live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long, featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. Hi, everybody. Jimmy Church here. Very special announcement, and that is we are shipping Fade to Black T-shirts again. It's been almost 2 years. We did a full upgrade to the website, so you can head over to jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple to do, and it's right there. Remember, we broadcast 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. We bring you the best, the brightest, the most knowledgeable and amazing guests, the best conversations. We do that 4 nights a week. We also do 4 days a week. We broadcast the news, and we do that live too as well. It's not a one-man show. I do it with website support. I do it with producers. I do it with writers and artists. All contribute to the show. The best way to help support what we do here is with the Fade to Black T-shirt. And you can get your Fade to Black T-shirt one of 2 ways. First, go to jimmychurchradio.com, order a shirt. It's really that simple. You're going to get a tracking number, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to get autographed. The second way to get a shirt is with a Game Changer membership. Now, the Game Changer membership not only includes a free T-shirt, but you get a private email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads. You have full access to the website, and everything includes free shipping, and everything is autographed. So help support the show. Get your Fade to Black T-shirt today. The links are below. You can just go to jimmychurchradio.com, and it's right on the website. So there you go. I'm Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. I'm so excited that I just have one thing to say. Go Beckley Teppy. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Okay, welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, our guest, Kaedrich Olsen. We're talking about energetic beings that tend to control our lives, and more importantly, what we can do about it too as well. And before the break, I swear, by the way, you were not there, and then you were. That was okay. Maybe I was imagining it. Where do we draw the line? When do we call in a professional? It's one thing. Okay, I'm just going to say this. It seems like if it goes physical to me, where there's something physical going on, then maybe you want to talk to somebody. I was, and you're right about that. I think about it all the time when I wake up in the middle of the night. Is this something going to be there? Do I, and I trip on that. It hasn't happened yet, but I've told this story many times, but it's about midnight. I'm reading my iPad. Right. I think my lamp was on, dimmed, but it was on in front of me. I'm lying on my side and I've got the iPad stand. Right. And I'm doing some stuff. And I've got my blankets up around my body and I'm lying on my side. Okay. Back. And man, as sure as I'm talking to you right now, I felt a hand push on my back. Right? Okay. And I jumped out of my skin, but I maintained. Okay. I mean, I'm talking about every hair just right through my body and whoa. But I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see. I did not want to see. I did not want to look. And I'm staring at the iPad. Nothing else happened. But that and so because it didn't happen again, I started to think it was my imagination. It's the way that the blanket's wrapped. No. That thing, and I know I sound nuts. But
Nope.
that was real. Should I have called in a professional at that point, or did where do we draw the line with this?
It's a good question. But real quick, why does that feel like a friend of yours, like somebody that you knew? I don't know, just kind of like the first impressions coming in. It was like somebody that you knew in life, like a friend of yours, just kind of like giving you the biz, kind of hanging out with you a little bit.
Man, it wasn't the vibe that I got. That wasn't no it's no, and let's hope that it was or is, but I think that it was whatever's going on here was already here. It started the first night. Okay, well let me we're going to get to the where do we draw the line question, because this is another part of it. I've shown the pictures, I've done all of this, and I've told the story a million times, but I'm moving in, right? It's like first day, second day, and I'm unpacking boxes, and upstairs, walk-in closet, and I've got shoe racks mounted, and the walk-in closet is about maybe 15 feet wide, right? Okay, and so on that long wall is a shoe rack that I'm filling up full of shoes, Adidas to be specific. And I've got boxes of shoes. And so I'm coming in, I'm putting the shoes, and I'm kind of a neat freak, and I've got them all laid out, right? I get like one row done, and then I do a second row, and I kind of stand back and look at it, right? Okay, all right, take the box, go downstairs, looking good, grab another box of shoes. I come back upstairs and I walk into the walk-in closet, and one of the pairs of shoes was on the floor in the middle of the closet, and on top of each other, by the way, right?
Mhm,
They're like this, or crisscross. And I went, no, what? I just looked at did I forget to put those shoes on? I'm not freaking yet, right? So I put the shoes on the rack, and I put up another row of shoes. Now I've got like 3 rows, right? And it's all looking good. Yeah, nice and neat. Take the empty box. I go downstairs, grab another box of shoes, and I come back upstairs. And I walk in, and there's another pair of shoes on the floor, crisscross. Right now, I scream, right? And I step back out of the closet. I do, man. I backed out of the closet, and I'm looking. I'm like, and they were out in the middle of the floor. Now, I'm going to leave that part. It continued and continues to this day, by the way. Where do we draw the line with that? Is that something that you just let go, or do you call in a professional?
Where you draw the line is when it starts to creep you out. When you feel that it's beyond your capacity to deal with it, that's when you need help. And the reason why I'm saying that is I don't want to seem like an alarmist, but a vast majority of most people's experience with the paranormal come from TV shows and movies. And that can get out of hand quickly, like we were talking about before. That
Mhm.
something's going on. It could be something completely innocuous. Maybe that somebody never seen a toilet before and they're flushing the toilet and it's just curiosity. But if we let it get out of hand ourselves, it can snowball. We can go down that slippery slope and things can get bad. And once they get bad, they're hard to undo. I mean, I'm not going to say they're hard. It just takes a greater deal of commitment and consistency to get rid of the bad stuff. It's possible. It's just it takes a bit more work to do. But if you can catch it when it's early, when it's kind of creeping you out, when it's freaking you out, we can find out what's really going on. We can come up with some techniques and practices to really get things in alignment so that things don't get out of hand. And like what you were doing with this is, sure, it seems like annoying. Sure, it seems to be like a bugger that's kind of messing with you, but you're not letting your fear take over. You're
Right.
not letting those things, those stories and all of those mythologies that we're told. That's the biggest danger. Those are some of the biggest entities that will take over, are the ones that we create out of our fear, out of our belief. But
Mhm.
meanwhile, maybe you've got like a little bugger in the house that just likes to mess with stuff. Whoopie doo.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you there, and I think part of it is, like I said earlier, we like being scared, right?
Yes.
We like those things. And, maybe, I mean, let's say, and I've had a few of my psychic medium friends over here at the house going, yeah, man, okay, dude, yeah, there's stuff going on. But what do you want to do about it? You know what? Nothing. I
Perfect.
mean, I take the fun out of it, right? and how boring of a house it would be. Like I said, it's not crazy, but like I said, if it does spin out of control, when do we actually call in a professional? So, and what about what I wanted to ask you this really quick, because I also want to talk about alien abductions with this phenomena too as well. The the other side of all of this is our pets. And do pets have a sense for this? Do pets look at ghosts when you can't see something? Right? Do they know when an energy? Should we pay attention to our pets?
Absolutely. In fact, I want to put the opposite spin on this.
Oh, the
I want to
dogs or the
say
ghosts?
that we are born with the ability to interact with the paranormal and subtle beings. And when we were children, we did. But we learned by watching our parents, by watching the people around us. We learned by parents basically telling us to tune it off, to tune away, and not do anything with it. So as adults, we're not experiencing and we're not interacting with these things. Me, as somebody who's been awake and aware of this the whole time, these things are all around you all the time, everywhere. We live in a paranormal reality. The paranormal is completely normal. The supernatural is completely natural. What's not natural is we've tuned it out. We've turned off our ability to experience it, interact with it. Children are very tuned in. They're very aware. That's why they have imaginary friends. That's why they're communicating and doing things that we don't understand as adults. They're manipulating energy. We think it's their imagination. They're experiencing something that most adults are tuned out. Pets, they're tuned into it. It's part of the natural world. They're aware of it. So that's where I'm saying the opposite is little children and animals, they're completely aware of the paranormal side of reality. We aren't. Or, well, adults aren't.
Are in the paranormal, in that other plane, are we the ghosts?
No, no. A better way to think of it is layers of density. When we're talking about like conscious beings, conscious energetic entities, it's just like energy. Let's say it's not even light, like not even like electromagnetic energy. It's just energy that condenses, that can become light, like electromagnetic light, which then condenses and it becomes matter and form. It's all the same stuff. It's just different densities of it. So we're not like ghosts to them in that other form. We're just dense beings compared to what they are.
Can we let ghosts ruin our lives?
More often than not, that's what happens.
Yeah.
More often than not, because shadow work, those self-destructive thoughts, those limiting beliefs, the sense that we don't deserve this, we don't deserve that. We get stuck in those inner world ruts. We just have that inner dialogue. No, I'm just going to suck at this. No, I was born to be that way. And we're going to get entities around us that go, psst, why are you trying that? That's just going to suck and you're going to fail at that anyway. So they're going to reinforce what we already have a proclivity to. And that's the key component. They're not going to come, like if you're doing a great life and you're thinking you're confident and you're wonderful and life is beautiful and you're doing your inner work and you're doing your shadow work, there's not going to be suddenly some entity that comes up and slaps you upside the head and says, nope, stop, I'm going to ruin your life. You're going to have that natural proclivity to it. You're going to have that that need to connect with it and draw its attention to you. Then through common agreement, you go down that slippery slope and it can ruin your life. Shades do this all the time to people.
Well, and I wanted to talk about alien abductions a little bit. I don't know if it's in your wheelhouse, but I think that there is, I'm convinced, when it comes to ET, that we've gone through some phases of understanding or trying to understand the phenomenon. Where in the 1940s and 50s, it was flying saucers and little green men, and that's what was arriving here on Earth, because we didn't have a firm understanding of the quantum or the small, and that was a very limited few of the educated that was studying the very small back then. But today, I have seen things appear and disappear. Mm-hmm. I have things come into this reality apparently out of nowhere and then turn around and disappear at the same time. And so when you see something like this, it appears to me it has an interdimensional, with I don't have another word for it, component to it. And then when we hear about alien abductions and contact experiences where some of these beings are going through walls, or when they take somebody and they remove them from the house and they go somewhere, they're going through a wall too. And it reminds me of some of the folklore, some of the fairy tales, and some of the things that have gone on in the past, where there may be an interdimensional parallel world component to this that only comes into focus when it's here in our reality, but then it goes back to where they are. Is that possibly what may be going on? And what was folklore today is alien abduction, but we're talking about the same thing?
Yeah, and I think that's just technology we don't understand.
Right.
And that we're just trying to put our own sensibilities onto it. I'm a big believer in the perception principle, meaning you cannot perceive something unless you already have it within you. There's that old story, I don't know if it's true or not, when the Native Americans saw the Santa Maria and the Nino coming, the Nina, the Santa Maria, you know what I mean? The Pinto all coming.
The Pinta, Maria, and...
Yeah, the Pinto, Santa Maria, and the Nino.
Was that the three? I can't remember now.
Man, I can't believe I
don't even know if it ever happened.
Right, but the rumor is that the Native American people could not see those ships because they never perceived anything like that. And we encounter that all the time. We will be seeing something, but we don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. We look at it, and then finally it kind of morphs, and we go, "Oh, got it." So if we don't have that ability to perceive it, we're not going to. In the meantime, we're going to take whatever schemas, whatever patterns we have in our own inner subconscious mind and apply it to what we're seeing to try to make sense out of it. For example, when I'm reading Old Norse, Old Scandinavian folklore, there's some tales that really fascinate me about somebody walking around late at night and they see a hill up on 3 red pillars. Interesting like that. It's a hill standing up on 3 pillars, and underneath that hill is like a light. And they go into that, under that hill, into that light, where there are elves, otherworldly beings, having a party, communicating, dancing, doing whatever they do. And this person is in this hill for whatever amount of time. To him it seems like just a few hours, but he comes back out, hangs out to his village, and people are like, we thought you were dead, you've been gone for 10 years, what's going on? So time moves differently in these hills. But now when we go look at like the Book of Enoch, or when we look at stories today about the Vimana, we're hearing the same descriptions, like this thing that sits on top of like 3 legs and that can fly around, and time moves differently. So all of these cultures are putting a different interpretation on the technology. And so when something can phase in and out of reality, maybe that's like the Philadelphia experiment. You know, people are phasing in and out of physical reality so that they can walk through walls, which appears to us like as an energetic being walking through walls and then manifesting as physical. But maybe it's just technology. You know, I'm a firm believer that there are extraterrestrial beings here on Earth communicating and interacting with us, and they've got technology we can't even imagine. And so when we see this technology in action, we don't understand it. We don't have the capacity to understand it. We don't know what's going on, but we're going to take our own understanding of what we do know and project that onto what we're perceiving, and let that be the feedback memory that we have of what's going on. And we're like, oh my God, it's like they just appeared out of nowhere, when it's like, no, it's just a little phase shift to them.
Yeah, it's nothing. But see, let me tell you why that has to be the case. If you and I had a time machine, right, and we grabbed a generator and we grabbed a microwave oven and we go back in time 200 years ago, and we fire up that generator and show the village the microwave oven, right? Something that we would laugh at today because it's just a microwave. Everybody's got one of those. It's nothing else. You just press 15 seconds and you've got thawed butter, right? But back then, that's magic.
Right.
That's voodoo. That's some black magic that might get you burned at the stake, actually. Time travel, but yeah, and they would not, no matter how you and I tried to explain it to them. It's the molecules vibrating, the atoms are colliding against each other, it creates friction, and it's, through this microwave beam that's coming in and vibrates, and then that, like you're rubbing 2 sticks together, it gets hot, we would never be able to explain it. Exactly. And they would never have the capacity to understand it. And I think it would be the same thing with ET. Whatever they're doing, it's easy. But exactly. I don't think we would have a firm grasp of understanding what they would try to tell us.
Exactly. I mean, even if I go back to the Travis Walton story, and I know the movie is vastly different from what his own experience is, but the thing that occurred to me in the movie is the actor is been abducted. He's on the ship. He's run around. He's gotten into some sort of tube or some place where he, is trying to hide away. And suddenly the aliens grab him, pull him out of there, and put him on the table and start doing stuff to him. My brain goes, holy crap, he may have gotten to some technology where he's getting irradiated by some sort of toxic radiation. And these aliens are going, oh crap, we don't want him hurt. All right, now we got to do these emergency procedures to clean him up. But yet we don't understand that. Maybe we wouldn't see that. We're just seeing these things beating him up and hurting him, when they're really like going, oh dude, you were stupid. You got into something you shouldn't have. Let's get this fixed. Think of it like an animal runs into and gets some toxic goop on it. We're like, oh shit, let's save you, clean it up. That animal is scared to death. The wild animal's like, what are these monkeys, these apes doing to me? What are they doing? And we're like, no, we're trying to save your life, little guy. Come on.
I think Travis has definitely turned around on that too as well, where he feels that his abduction was because they injured him, and they brought him on board to fix him back up. I think that's where he is today with that. He's kind of worked his way through it. I mean, altogether, yeah, horribly terrifying experience. I can only imagine what that must have been like. But I think he feels that way, that they accidentally blasted him, right? Hit him in the chest with some kind of particle energy weapon. And they brought him on board and went whoop, 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 and made him all better.
That's interesting you say that, because I always wondered, that was always kind of like the intuitive feel, that he accidentally got hurt by something he didn't understand and that they were trying to help him. I didn't know he has that feeling nowadays. I'm like, that's fascinating to me.
And I've asked Travis. I've talked to him about this a few times. Would he do it again? Right? And he's kind of like, no. Well, maybe. I said, well, it wasn't really a bad experience. I didn't understand what was going on at the time, and that terrified me. But I it's not like he was tortured or anything like that. I don't think he feels that way at the time. Certainly, it was different. It was a terrifying experience. But I've asked, would you do it again? And he said, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And, it's an interesting thing. And I've asked a lot of abductees that same question. You've gone through it. Would you do it again? And I would say it's probably 50-50. Some say, yeah, absolutely. It was cool. It was a great experience. And the contact is ongoing and I want it to continue. There are others that were like, no, it was a horrifying, bad situation, which comes down to you're going to have different species, right? You're going to have good, you're going to have bad, you're going to have some that just don't give a crap. And what are we to them but ants? Right?
Maybe, maybe years ago, when I had my first alien experience, extraterrestrial experience, they explained to me that there's like a block in the universe. And I know people are not going to agree with me, and we don't have to agree, that there is a block out in the universe that you can't leave your planet until you've solved the problem of conflict. That you've got to come to this peaceful resolution before you can leave your planet to visit other worlds. And then I found the work of Dr. Stephen Greer, and he was saying the same kind of thing. And I'm like, huh. So what do we do about these reptilians? What do we do about these archons? What do we do about all of these other tales of these beings that are out there? How do we resolve that? And some of the best explanations I've gotten, and this is the research I've been doing and the exploration that I've been doing, and coming to a very interesting conclusion that people don't have to agree with me. And I want to be proven wrong on this, if this is wrong, okay? That there are no reptilian agendas on this planet. Never have been. But reptilian creatures are weird. They're strange. They're not mammalian like we are. And they're not cuddly and neat, but they're weird and they're scary. And then we've got all these stories about snakes being evil, even though they were symbols of wisdom at one point. And our collective powers grew together to create these reptilian archons in ancient days. And these reptilian archons, as egregor type beings existing in the 4D reality, are very real. They are influencing people. They are pushing agendas, but they are our agendas. They are our greed. They are our psychopathy, really, that is getting manifest as these reptilian looking beings that are influencing people all over the place. They're not interdimensional, they're not extraterrestrial, but they are egregors. They're tulpas. They're the energy beings that we created to influence us so that we have this sort of internal conflict that we're dealing with. And the more I look at the reptilian agenda and what the reptilians are supposed to be doing and how they're influencing, sure, they can be perceived as real. Sure, they can show up as almost like a physical thing, like your friend, our mutual friend, had that thing on the bed that showed up and manifested as almost like a physical thing. These things can do that. And so it seems like they're influencing us, but it's really us influencing us through this projection of this entity. And the more we are individually doing our spiritual work, individually doing our shadow work, the more we're inserting that information into the collective unconscious. And that's why we're seeing these quote unquote reptilian agendas starting to fail, why they're falling apart, why the reptilian influence is no longer as strong in the bloodlines or whatever on our planet, is because we are collectively shifting. Humanity is really ready for this evolution. We are really ready for this conscious evolution. And one of those huge steps is to finally put an end to this reptilian agenda. Because I do think, my personal belief, unless I'm completely wrong and I need to be proven, but my belief, like we talked about belief instead of knowing, is that all of the extraterrestrial presence on this planet is extremely benevolent. We just need to tune into that and be okay with that.
I haven't. Well, no, that's what I almost said is not entirely true. But I would say overall, the contact with ET has been good. If there is a technology that is arriving to this planet, and I believe that it does, then far more advanced than we can wrap our heads around. And if that intelligence didn't want us here, we wouldn't be here. I mean, it's really that simple.
Exactly. That's the thing that's coming to my mind when I'm watching like the disclosure hearing that just happened. Not that we'll call it disclosure hearing, but the congressional hearing on these extraterrestrial encounters. These beings have been here for a long time. If they wanted to colonize, if they wanted to eradicate, they would have done it by now.
Maybe they have.
Maybe they have. Maybe, and maybe I'm wrong. I like to know what's going on, and so I've got my belief, and I'm open to that that dissonance to that belief. Somebody show me that's different, but I'm not sure yet.
I'm just going to share this with them. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I'm with a group of friends, and we see this giant in the middle of the day, this giant ship, and it came out from behind this mountain, and it was tall, it was round, but the point to all of this is, and we're all looking at it. It's the middle of the day, blue sky, crazy. We're jumping around and screaming, and it was insane. There's like 30 of us. And wow, right? And we see it. It's like hundreds of feet tall, and it's spinning. And as I'm looking at it, going in between, and it's moving across the sky. So I was assuming it was moving so slow and it was so big that we were going to look at this for an hour. You know what I mean? It's just like it was huge. It was huge. And as I go from looking at it with the naked eye, and I'm coming back over to the binoculars to look at it again, I was looking at it through the binoculars. It was spectacular, by the way, just unreal. I hear Steve Murillo, who's sitting to my right. He goes, "It phased out, man. It disappeared." Right? I was like, "What?" And I come in, it's gone. Gone. Now, he said, and so did everybody else that saw it, it just phased out. That was the word that they used. I saw it appear. I would have loved to have seen it phase out. I didn't see that happen. And I'm just so, but when you have something like that in the middle of the day, right? It's like, it's the holy grail of sightings. Yeah. So that tells me that there was something going on. But you know what that craft didn't do? Start firing lasers and taking out cities.
Exactly. And that's what I keep hearing all the time. Amazing stories. I've had my own experiences, little weird, strange things like that. But what didn't happen is nobody got hurt. There was no lasers. There was no White House going up in a puff of smoke. It was just, hey, we're here. We're doing this.
Why do you think this conversation has gone from ridicule and teasing of our community to suddenly worldwide acceptance of the phenomena virtually overnight? Why do you think that is?
The collective unconscious is shifting. We're getting ready. We're getting ready for that next stage. We're getting ready for that next step of work. And this is what I tell people all the time when we're doing our spiritual work, when we're doing our shadow work. We are doing it for ourselves. We have to do it for ourselves primarily. But when you do that work, you're inserting that information into the collective unconscious and making it easier for everyone else to do that work too. And so, as the people like MUFON, as the CE5 experiencers, they're constantly doing that work, and they're opening up that experience, and they're realizing the reality of what's going on. That information is getting put into the collective unconscious, making it easier for everyone else to go, "Huh, yeah, of course, that's what's always been going on. Yeah, I believe it."
Do you you brought up the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria? Oh, did I get it right?
There we go. I think that sounds right. Yeah.
I think that sounds right. I haven't heard that story in so long. It's been like second grade. It's kind of weird with Columbus. Cancel culture, man. He's been canceled. It's like we moved on. Nah, we're not buying the Columbus story anymore. But when we think about that and we go back into deep history, if you met somebody, you got your little village, right? And you meet a tribe, whatever, that for the first time, you're not necessarily freaking out. Different culture. Hey, man, they got different kinds of animal skins on. Oh, okay. They paint their face, whatever it is, but you're not necessarily freaking out. And if some ships came in, like the indigenous cultures here didn't recognize what was going on. But if that happened back in deep history, it's just from another part of the world, right? Everything is new. You're learning, right? Everything is new. Everything is fresh. It's new experiences. And if a flying saucer came down, or a ship, or beings manifested themselves, you're just learning something new. You don't have a concept necessarily of planets and space and the universe, probably not at all. And so these are friends from the other side of the planet sharing information with you. We had a different way of looking at it. Today, it's a different story. But in ancient cultures, now this would be elevated to God status, right? That these are gods, or these are intelligent beings and or angels or what have you. Do you think that is what is going on? And today we would look at it a different way, but back then they were just new people and new experiences.
It depends. Like in the book of Enoch, when the ship came down, everybody was freaking out and running away from it, except for Enoch. And that's why he got to have the experience that he did. But when we hear stories of Vimanas, they were embraced as the gods coming onto the planet. People didn't run away. I think it depends on the different cultures, different people, what they're ready for, what they're not ready for. Just like I kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying the reason why we haven't gotten disclosure fully yet here in the US is because there are some people, watching Gaia, watching Fade to Black, watching these shows, they're ready for disclosure. They're ready to embrace the aliens. They're ready to say, hey, come here, extraterrestrial, we're all part of the galactic neighborhood. Let's get together. But you're still going to have those people that go, I see one of those things flying overhead. I'm going to get my shotgun and my AR-15. I'm going to shoot it out of the sky and make sure it doesn't try to take over whatever it's coming. We're not quite ready yet because we haven't solved that conflict yet.
I'm not so that's I'm gonna kind of no. We shoot first. That part's true. No, we got that, but I disagree with you, and let me tell you why. All right. It's a good way to end the show, a little spirited debate.
Heck yeah.
I've often thought, now you're in Colorado, right? You have the 40 freeway that goes through there, right?
70.
The 70, all the way from Indianapolis to Denver. 70 freeway, rush hour, right? Downtown Denver. It's locked up traffic, and a flying saucer comes down and lands on the 70 and is blocking traffic, right? Now, there is about 15 minutes of live streaming, right? People getting out of their cars, streaming to Facebook and what have you. And whoa, check this out, for about 15 minutes. At about minute 16, you're going to have somebody get out of the car and go, okay, cool. Get that thing off of the freeway because I got to get home.
Very true.
Right? That's where I'm at. I think that the fascination of it is going to be there, but with the news cycle and everything else in our lives, I think the freak out is going to be very short-lived.
You might be right. You might absolutely be right. I hope that's the case. I really would love that to be the case because I'm looking forward to that day when we can just all get along and connect. And yeah, there's going to be that annoyance because that's just how we are, right? Just feel like, ugh, why do you have to have that shiny light on my house this time of night? Get out of here.
Well, exactly. I've got children sleeping here. I'm going to call the police.
Right.
Don't you guys know any nice songs? So, but here's the other part of it. We had the New York Times in 2017 blast out with that story. And the media picks up on it around the world. UFOs are real. Pentagon's got a secret UFO program. ET is here, and it's covered everywhere. And nothing happened. Right. We were warned by the Rand Corporation. We were warned by these secret studies that civilization would implode. Right. Anarchy. We would burn this thing down. Religion, the stock exchange, economic markets, everything would collapse. None of that happened. And the reaction was almost the opposite. Well, what did you expect? The universe is a big place. We can't be alone. I found that fascinating, a fascinating study on humanity.
I think if we really look at the news and we look at statistics, we are definitely, for sure, in the most peaceful time in all of human history. Despite little eruptions here or there, despite, some mass shootings that happen, overall, we are in the most peaceful time in human history, and it's getting better. Just as a general trend, it's getting better. And if we look to some of these news stories, like here in Denver, in Colorado, when marijuana was first legalized, even my mom was on this bandwagon. Oh no, they're going to legalize this. People are going to be driving like crazy. They're going to be shooting each other. No one's going to go to work. People are just going to be getting high all the time. It's going to destroy our civilization. My mom was like firmly believing people are going to be driving high on marijuana, causing crashes and shooting each other. Never happened. Never happened. People got along peacefully, calmly. When Katrina hit in New Orleans, there were these big beliefs that there was going to be massive rioting, massive looting, massive fighting. What happened? People got together and helped each other out.
Right.
And I think that is the basic nature of humanity, is collaboration and cooperation, where we get together. And once we get over that initial freak out factor, like you were saying, I think we're going to come back together and find our common humanity, even with extraterrestrial beings.
So you have flowers hanging out of your pockets?
No.
Let's not take it that far, Jimmy. Well, but I think that you're right. I think you're circling pretty close to the target here, metaphorically speaking, in that I think that humanity, this is my own take, but in line with your observation, I think we're like 23 years old, 22, 23 years old. Because at that age, you're still partying pretty hard, but you're also looking at the second half of your life. Like, man, okay, at some point I got to pack it in and start taking things serious. Right. And I think that's where we are. We partied, pretty hard for the last 5,000 years. But now it's time to grow up and start to take ourselves seriously, which includes our brothers and sisters, but of course the planet and our acceptance into what else is going on throughout the cosmos. And I think that's where we're at. We're like 23 years old. We still want to get our yayas out, but we want to be responsible adults at the same time, and you're in that weird phase of life. And I think that's where we are at as a planet.
I love that metaphor because a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, some of them tend to be in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, some not quite. I talk about 20-year cycles of life. Like the first 20 years of our life are defined by our parents and our community, and that's how we know the world works and that's how everything works. But when we start to get into our 20s, we start to question, we start to, unravel all of that stuff that we've learned about how the world works and about how we are so that we can start to shape our own world. And then when we finally get into our 40s, we are free to create the world in our own image and our own way of being. And so you saying that humanity is about 23, that's about right. We're starting to look back at our first 20 years and go, I don't know about that, and start to unravel it. But we still like to play and have fun and go back to our comfort zones. I like that.
And one last comment before we go. When I was a kid, I haven't smoked pot in over 20 years. Okay, I haven't. But before that, I smoked everybody else's weed. Right? I puffed, loved it. And I used to say when I was a kid, 15, 16 years old, wouldn't it be great if pot was legalized? How that would change things. And there was this thing that we had, us against the man, our parents and police and teachers and the adults above us. And we were in this rebel zone. All right. Well, now pot's legalized. The world didn't fall apart. None of that happened. And also, I think the cool factor of being the rebel is gone. Right? You can now go into a pot store, buy a bag of weed, hanging out of the car at the police, and laugh all the way home. It takes the edge off. How can you be an OG gangsta pot smoker and it's legal?
I can't remember if it was George Carlin or Stephen Wright who said he couldn't wait for marijuana to be legalized. That way all the stoners would have nothing to talk about.
It's 100% correct. What do you do? It's like that dinner party I was just telling you, we were talking about earlier, right? If it's not illegal, right? It's like milk. What? I can buy milk at the store. I can buy what? I'm not some gangsta. I can go buy. And I don't even get lactose-free milk. I go full in, But yeah, it's kind of weird, and it's the same thing with the UFO aspect of this, where I think that we're all going to kind of miss the fight. Right? If disclosure happens, it was like our little. Right now, I've got the Senate. I've got Washington, D.C. agreeing with me. You know what? I don't like that. I need the angst. I need the fight. I need the purpose of being. And I miss the side of the community that we had of us versus them. And right now, Washington, D.C. wants to be my friend. I'm not digging that.
Well, think about this. You know what our next collective shadow will be, though, once disclosure happens? The collective embarrassment of all the alien invasion movies. We have to go, oh, sorry about that.
Giorgio, we're at the end of the show. Giorgio Tsoukalos on this show about 5 years ago. This is what he said. Like the wisest man ever. I've used this quote hundreds of times since then. I've completely stolen it. No, I give him the attribute, but nonetheless, he said, flying saucer, White House lawn. It happens. Stair comes down. E.T. walks out, starts talking to us, and we find out that we were all wrong.
Yep.
You're exactly right. Kaedrich, perfect show, man. Thank you so much. I look forward to our next conversation. Just keep doing what you're doing. Now, I've got a bunch of links up for you. Where's the best way for everybody to reach out?
Definitely Kaedrich.com. Plus, look for my name on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I'm always always open and available for theirs.
Yeah, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing, my man. Great show. Now go play that Zach Wild. I'll talk to you, brother.
Take care.
Kaedrich Olsen. That was a perfect show tonight. And what a great way for us to wrap up the end of the week here on Fade to Black. I've got a fun weekend in front of me. I'm going to go do a private sky watch with Billy Carson. He just got into town. And so there you go. That's what I'm doing. And I'll see everybody on Monday. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Indro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. And this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black of the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until Monday, I want you to be safe. Have a great weekend. Go Beckley Tepe.